I'm Kitty of the Hobart Dolls Hospital, and this video will be about how to restring a doll. Don't forget to like, to subscribe, and that way we can let you know when the next video is out. The doll I have here is a gorgeous little Pedigree doll. She is going to be lovely once she's been all put together and cleaned up. Her eyes can be fixed. Her other earring can be replaced. She is going to be beautiful. So to restring this doll, I usually use two types of restringing elastic. This is a lovely type to use because you've got the rubber band or the elastic band on the inside, and it's coated with a cotton coating. So it's very, very good to use. It's easy to use. It's easy to knot as well when you need to use knots to hold things in place. I think for this doll, I would use the 4mm. That's the 3mm. I'll be using the 4mm for this doll. Okay, so to do this, you need to basically attach the head to the legs. That will be the first part of the restringing process. I've also got to get the old bits of elastic off. Someone has actually used rubber bands on this dolly. They used to have a band that looked very much like rubber bands holding the limbs in place, but these bands perish over time. And it's always worthwhile, if you get one of these dollies, always check the bands, because if they break suddenly, the head can drop off and get damaged, or the limbs can drop off. Maybe that's what's happened to this one. She's missing her feet, or missing her toes, sorry. We may ultimately be able to replace the whole leg, or we could possibly resculpt new feet there, new toes and things, and that would actually, I think, come up quite well. So I will get the elastic, work out roughly how much I need. And when I'm doing this, any little bits I chop off, I don't throw away, I keep them, because if a little tiny doll comes through and you only need a tiny bit of elastic, it's one way of ensuring you're not wasting precious materials. Now inside the head you have a bar, and it runs from one side to the other side. And you will need to place a hook over that bar and then this elastic onto the hook. Check the bar, just make sure it is firm. Sometimes with these dolls the bar can come loose, and if it does, then what you need to do is reposition it. And I certainly recommend araldite is very good, a little bit of araldite on either side of the bar to secure it in place. Also with these type of Pedigree dolls, you will see that the eyes, on the inside of the eyes, there is a weight. There is a mechanism with a weight on it that helps the eyes to open and close. And with some of these models, they also have the flirty eyes, which will go side to side. And it's important that you don't jam those eyes. These eyes do need a bit of work on them, actually. But anyway, let's see how we go. I'm going to use one of these hooks. You don't want anything that's too long. This hook just perhaps, let me see, just see how, yeah, actually that hook might do. I'll take my glasses off for this. I can see better without my glasses sometimes. So that is going to fit through there. Now, one of the things I have noticed is that sometimes you'll put a doll together and then the eyes will jam up, they won't move. Now, one of the things that can be causing that is the hook. And I find a good idea is to bend the hook a little bit so it's not perfectly straight, and then put the hook, so you've got the face this side, the back of the head this side, put the hook in that way so it bends away from the eye mechanism. Another point I think is worthwhile sharing is with some dolls, due to age, and I find particularly the smaller dolls, the smaller hard plastic dolls, when you put the head on, everything's looking great, and then again you find the eyes are jamming up, and it's not the hook that's doing it, it's something else. It can be the top of the neck, because the inside of the head has worn and the outside of this neck has worn. The top part of that neck can actually sit up higher than what it should be, and the result is it gets in the way of the eye mechanism. So something else you can do is get some epoxy resin. I find the 5-minute setting epoxy resin is very, very good. Mix some up and put some around the inside of the neck where it would come into contact with the outside of the neck at the top of the torso. So you put some on the inside, let it set, just see whether it's going to sit, and if it's still sitting too low, do another little layer and let it set. If you find you have too much, you can trim it a little bit off with a scalpel or use a little file. But that way the head will then sit in the position it would have originally sat when that dolly was first made. So there are two things to be considered when attaching the head to the torso. I also find forceps are very handy. So you can grab it with a forceps. Actually, another trick. Put the elastic through the hook first. Then pop it inside and catch it around that hook inside the head. And just check, hold that about middle where it would be when it is attached to the torso, and just see if it's going to be touching the eye mechanism. Keep a little bit of tension on there so the hook doesn't come undone. Thread it down through the body, down one side. Grab it with a forceps and pull it through. Thread it down the other side. Just grab it with the forceps. Pull it through. Keep that bit of tension on so that the hook doesn't disengage from the rod inside the head. This is a good time now to see whether or not the eyes are going to be opening and closing. Now, thread this through one leg, poke it through so you've got both ends coming out through the one hip aperture there, and then thread that through the other one. What I need to do is enlarge that hook a bit, make that a bit bigger where it's hooking around, and that should go there, through there a bit easier now. Yeah, that's it. And pull it through. Now, if you don't have any hooks for attaching the legs or the head, you can actually make these out of coat hanger wire, that nice thick coat hanger wire, and bend it into shape. You need something strong because there's going to be a fair bit of tension on this elastic. You need to know the wire's not going to gradually straighten out and the hooks are going to come undone over time. But I find the good strong coat hanger wire is very, very good for just this purpose. Now, I have had some people say that one of the problems they have is getting the limbs tight enough. There's various techniques for getting them to the right tension. I find the best way is to use a slip knot. So a slip knot is you go round, up through. If you don't know how to do a slip knot, look it up on Google. There's some good instructions on slip knots. The good thing about a slip knot is you're creating a knot that one piece of the elastic will still be pulled through, while the knot itself will hold some tension. So once the slip knot's in place, you can start pulling in the tension. Till you get it to the way you would want it. I'll show you again how I do a slip knot. Now you need to be careful when you're bringing in the tension. Some dollies may have this aperture in the hip worn and the legs might easily pop into the body. Or where there's a join in the torso, I have known that join to be coming apart a little bit. You don't want to put extra pressure on there. Sometimes I've had to put a little tie, drill a little hole either side of the join where it's coming apart, put a little tie through there, and then put some araldite on there to hold it in place. So you need to keep that in mind as well. Now once you've pulled that knot in to the right amount of tension, I put a double knot. Now this is the only time you should ever use super glue on your doll repairs. Don't use it any other time. I'm going to put a tiny drop of this on the knot in the elastic, and that will ensure that knot never removes. It is never removed. It never comes undone. Some of the wigs on the very old dolls will actually start to smoulder when super glue comes in contact. You could start a fire. So super glue has its place. It's great stuff. I can't deny that. But what I'm saying is, this sort of work, when you're doing this sort of thing, only ever use it when you want to make sure a knot won't come undone. So I open it up, being very careful not to get any on the doll, and a tiny drip on the knot. Just a tiny, tiny drip, and that's it. And then you can cut the elastic off as close to the knot as possible. So there's Dolly with her legs in place. Now for the arms. So we've gone from the head to the legs. So you basically have a loop from there down through here. And then the arms go side to side. I need to open this up a little bit more. Poke it through. There we go, so that's one arm in place. There we go. And I will use the slip knot once again. So loop, under, back up through the loop and pull. Pull that nice and tight so it's tight enough to grip the piece of elastic that goes through the knot, and then pull. This is a very good knot when you use it on the Pedigree walking dolls, where you're sitting the head on a little platform when you're reattaching the head to the torso. There's not a lot of space for you to get the knot right and the elastic right to get the head on firmly. But by using the slip knot, you're able to pull that head on really, really tight and work within a very confined area to get the right tension. So it's a very good knot. It's worthwhile practicing. Again, a double knot to hold it in place. The tiny, tiny drop of super glue. Being very careful not to get any on the doll, because it will mark the doll. Doesn't matter how quick you are with trying to get it off, it will leave a mark. So be very, very careful. So there's Dolly, with the arms and her legs in place. I can now give her a really good clean. I'll clean her eyes, and that will probably help them to work much better. I think I've got a spare earring somewhere as well, so she'll be able to get her earring back. And of course, as I said earlier, I'll resculpt her foot. I can use the other foot as a model and then resculpt this foot. And I will actually do another video which will explain some of the sculpting techniques I use. Thank you for watching the Hobart Dolls Hospital. I look forward to meeting you again. Bye-bye.